You're listening to the Major Pod Network, the only place where your favorite toy store, card shop, arcade, theme park, and arena are all on the same block. Scratch that major itch.
This is Tony Chimmel, and I'd like to introduce the hosts of the Game Marks podcast, George Feis and Johnny Clash.
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast presented by the Major Pod Network. I am Mr. Anything is Feasible, George Feis.
And I'm the man they call Johnny Clash, and today we are continuing round one of Game Wars with WWE Smackdown. Here comes the Pain versus Fire Pro Wrestling World. Which game will advance to round two? The vote is in your hands. We also discuss more gaming news, and we see the preview for the next matchup next week.
And don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And follow us on all forms of social media at Game Marks Pod. And check out all of the exclusive content we are creating for our Patreon at patreon.com/GameMarksPod. Game Wars Round 2, John.
Game Wars. I listened back last week. I didn't do it. I didn't do the Regal justice. And to be honest, I sat there with like rips of Regal saying war games, but he says it's so like war games that I couldn't get it right to make a nice little soundbite. Maybe I got to download Melodyne again. My music engineers will know what I'm talking about.
So this is
make a fart sound like Bon Jovi.
This is round 1, match 2.
That's right. And as you are listening, the vote is up for this week's game. I suggest you listen to both sides here and then make your assessment. But last week, this was a tough one. WCW NWO Revenge versus VPW 2. That's Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. Both N64 games. One a little bit newer than the other. One's on the WrestleMania 2000 engine. One's, it's Revenge.
Yeah.
The final tally. The winner. At 78.7 versus 21.3.
Unbelievable.
Woo, I thought it was going to be a lot closer. WCW NWO Revenge. Now, I will say this. When it comes to passionate, the VPW2 fans, they are there. They just... Yes. I've talked to Dre41, who you might know on Twitter as one of the top content creators for the 2K series or really any wrestling game or any game. And, he was saying, like, I've spent hours, go check out his YouTube. He spent hours playing this game. It's such a good game, but it's still kind of hidden to, like, the casual fan. So maybe if you are just a WWE mark, and I say that nicely, then you don't know that this game even exists. So if you are one of them sitting here, like, I don't really know what VPW is, so I went and I voted for Revenge. Go out of your way. There's emulators online. You could get it anywhere. Play Virtual Pro Wrestling 2. You will not be disappointed. You might learn a thing or two about something you don't know. So
yeah, expand your gaming horizons. If you're if you are as passionate about wrestling video games as John and I are, and so many more, do yourself a favor. At this point, this late in the game. Get it? See what I said this late in the game? You're actually doing yourself a disservice by not playing this.
Listen, I was one of them. I honestly went into even last week's episode saying I'm probably going to vote for Revenge. At the end, we both voted for Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, and rightfully so. It just has a lot more features, and it's an expanded roster from Revenge, and we both just really liked it. But George, AEW Fight Forever, if you're listening to this on Monday or anytime next week, the whole showcase with THQ Nordique already happened. Unfortunately, we're recording this on Thursday, So we are going to come back next week with the follow-up with more AEW Fight Forever, which I think is actually a good thing, because we're not only going to get the video, maybe we're going to get some more news, some more screenshots, some more modes, and we're going to have a nice little segment for you next week.
Yeah. But listen, man, we're so close. We're so close, John. 840. When we hit 1,000 Twitter followers, we will be breaking down the video game history of Mick Foley. And
Cannot wait.
it's not just Mick Foley. It's Mankind. It's Cactus Jack. It's Dude Love. Across any game that he has appeared in. We have already done Bret Hart, The Undertaker, the Legion of Doom. If you are listening to this episode and you have not yet followed us on Twitter, twitter.com/GameMarksPod. Please help us hit this milestone. It would be a huge thing for both John and I in the podcast. And also, it's just a really cool experience to go back and look at every version of an individual wrestler throughout their video game history.
Yeah, it's our favorite thing to do. George, as I'm sitting here, I got to point this out. I'm not going to wait till gaming news because it's so cool. I know you're not a big NBA guy. I'm not even. I used to be. I'm not a big NBA guy anymore either. NBA 2K23 is one of the best looking games I have ever seen in my life, and I'm probably going to buy it just based on the video they put out of the Jordan Challenge.
Yeah, it does look really good. I'm not a big...
Oh my God, I haven't played since 2K16, but I think I'm back.
You're right. Your assessment was right, but man, you can't even deny how great
God.
this game
He's
looks.
wearing the Jordan 1s. Okay.
It looks awesome.
I digress. George, with that, are we tipped? I'm not even tiptoeing.
No.
I'm
Double
running-
cannonball off the highest diving board possible.
I am
like we're in
running
the freaking
off
Olympics.
the top of the Hell in a Cell accidentally because we are covering right now WWE Smackdown. Here Comes the Pain versus Fire Pro Wrestling World.
Let's go.
Sponsored by Zavi. Hey, George. You see this light here that says game over that I point to at the end of every single episode, like Ronda Rousey pointing to that WrestleMania sign?
I do.
Do you know where I got it?
Why don't you tell me?
I got it from Zavi. That's us.zavi.com, Z-A-V-V-I, and they literally have everything. I have spent hours on this website looking up Mandalorian, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, like everything you could imagine. There's Legos, Power Rangers. You could pre-order the new Marvel Legends. It's an insane website that has literally everything pop culture. There's even Batman shoes on here.
I mean, I know for me, a little like adult Zen garden project that I like to do is like the smaller Lego sets, and Zavi has a lot of those Lego sets on there and getting kind of itchy. So if you like all things pop culture, like John said, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Harry Potter, Nintendo, they're even getting into the wrestling game now.
Oh, yeah.
Zavi is the place for you.
That's right. Use code GameMarks, simply just GameMarks, at checkout, and you can get 10% off.
I'm going to redo my wardrobe. All right, we're going to do this the same way that we did last week. We're going to break down the general information of these two games, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty. So,
I am hyped.
WWE Smackdown Here Comes the Pain, released October 27th, 2003, published by THQ, developed by Ukes for the PlayStation 2. You know it, you love it. It ranks among so many people's top games. On the other hand, we've got Fire Pro Wrestling World, released August 28, 2018 for the PS4, and December 19th, 2017 for the PC. Developed by Spike Chunsoft, published by Spike Chunsoft, developed by Zex Corporation and Spike Chunsoft, and again, like I said, for the PC and PS4.
First things first, like you said, I think you mentioned it for SmackDown versus Raw. Probably the top game on majority of people's lists.
Oh, yeah.
I think when we first brought this the whole Game Wars up, most people said SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, or No Mercy is the best, or Revenge is the best.
Oh, yeah.
Fire Pro Wrestling World, also up there with the best. I think it gets a little bit less than the rest because, like myself, you look at this game and you say, what are these graphics? What is this? What is happening right now? And it just doesn't look like what you're used to.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to break outside of the box that you're living in. You have to go try it out. You have to play a few. You have to understand how to play this game because it's simple, but it's hard because it's not what you're used to. You're not just running and heat-seeking moves. You're not grappling someone and throwing them into the ropes and to these crazy moves, combos. You have to be
Take
methodical.
your time,
you have to be strategic. Take your time.
It's
know
about
what
patience.
to press. Whole thing's based on timing. I think most importantly for me, it was don't button mash because that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
You have to figure this game out in order to play it, which is a challenge, and I think some people shy away because of that. Now, which one do you want to take to run down, and I'll do the other?
I mean, I feel like over the course of the history of this podcast, I have always been the Fire Pro guy, and you have always been the more mainstream game. So I will... Now I know that you are a fan of the Fire Pro series, but for argument's sake, I will take the Fire Pro series, and you could take Here Comes the Pain.
All right, so Here Comes the Pain. We all know it. It's the sequel to SmackDown Shut Your Mouth. It came... What?
I just realized that means I have to read the roster.
We're not going to read the rosters. We don't have to read the rosters. I didn't even put the rosters in here because we could touch on the roster. We got a lot here.
Big names. We'll hit the big names.
Yeah, we'll hit the big names. There's some big stuff happening with this game that we don't have in any other Fire Pro game. This one's a sequel, though, to SmackDown Shut Your Mouth, which is the fourth game. This one being the fifth, and that's after SmackDown. SmackDown 2, SmackDown Just Bring It. So, again, this is the long line of SmackDown games. This is where it comes to an end because next you're getting SmackDown versus Raw. We all know that game. We covered it in the archives. Now, in SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, you are getting a new grapple system. You're getting body damage displays, which we actually see in the Japanese counterparts, but not here. You're getting submission meters and the ability to break a submission hold when you're touching the ropes. Something we say that we want to see in games now. It was here. Now, individual characters, you can now have stats like strength, endurance, speed. That's all here for the first time, and it actually helps your character and will give them a boost in certain abilities. We don't see that in any other game either. Now, usually grapples were done circle, D-pad. You only had a few. Now you are getting over 25 different grapple moves per person because there's a nice little lockup. It now goes into like a different grapple mode for each direction you go, which then branches off. So I think that is something that paved the way kind of for today. So this is where it changed, and the games you're playing today in 2K, you're seeing it. Now, this part gets me because everybody knows Jeff Hardy, one of my favorites of all time. No shame. He was first in the development version of this game, along with Hulk Hogan and Mr. America, and the 80s appearance of Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior was making his return to WWE games here. Now, due to legal problems, Ultimate Warrior was not here. Hulk Hogan and Jeff Hardy were fired, so that all did not happen. So now we get to the season mode. SmackDown, from the beginning, has been known to have some of the cooler season modes. This one, obviously the most in-depth of the bunch because SmackDown 1, you're getting the little cutscenes with the... I think Jericho's the only one that had the voiceover, that one that was cut out, right?
Yeah. You're
getting the text kind of like No Mercy, but it actually makes sense when you read it. You now have a menu screen, which looks like a locker.
Yes.
And we've seen that in so many games up till a few years ago.
When they actually had like the full-on menus now.
Right. And it's just really cool. And that's where you can go and you can enter the GM's office, ask for a title shot, ask to go to a different brand, etc. And it's just... it just branches out from there. I'm going to cut it off here. That's the main features here. I want to hear what Fire Pro World is all about.
All right. Now, if you have been listening to this podcast, or if you are at all familiar with Fire Pro Wrestling World, you know that there are some things that are just staples. These quintessential game modes, these match types that you get. But we got to know where it came from. in order to appreciate how far it's come for Fire Pro Wrestling World. Now this
Absolutely.
Fire Pro Wrestling World is the sequel to Fire Pro Wrestling for the Xbox 360 in 2012, and Fire Pro Wrestling returns for the PS2. Now in between, you've got one of John's favorite games that he's looking forward to play very, very badly. It is Fire Pro Wrestling in what, John?
In Mobage.
Now, the game modes that I was alluding to
can't wait to
before,
cover that.
oh my God, it's like that and the Wonder Swan. Just unbelievable. You have barbed wire death matches, steel cages, you have the MMA rules, the SWA rules. Obviously, you have a singles, tag, battle royal. There are so many different match types. And part of the reason that you're able to get that is because you're not spending so much of the memory of this game on the graphics. These are very simplistic looking sprites, but with a lot of detail. There's just not a ton of polygons to them, so they're able to get away with the space saving. Now, Fire Pro Wrestling World is the first game in this series to incorporate online multiplayer, which can hold up to 4 players in a match. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. Fire Pro Wrestling World has, I believe, been around. We'll double check this, and John will cut it in if I'm wrong. Has been around since the early 80s, maybe even before that for like the Commodore. And for Fire Pro Wrestling World to be the first game that ever has online play, and it came out in 2017, is insanity. This was one of the most popular wrestling games internationally, and has a cult following in the States. So this was huge. At Wrestle Kingdom Fan Fest 2018, Spike Chunsoft announced that not only would this game be coming out, but also that New Japan Pro Wrestling would be officially licensed and would come complete with a story mode and an audio dubbed fighting mode.
This is what we've always said a Fire Pro needed, was a license. We need the license. It's actually, when you go into the roster, strange to see real names.
Oh, yeah.
Because you think they're created, and then you're like, oh, wow, Minoru Suzuki has really cool cuts on the side of his head, in his hair. You're like, oh, because it is Minoru Suzuki. Yeah.
And
Liger looks like Liger.
We'll get into the big names later, but man, there are some heavy hitters. But you have the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and then later on, in a DLC, you get access to the Junior Heavyweight Championship, and then there's
I did purchase that one.
Another pack, which includes one of the biggest names in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and in wrestling in general, Jay White.
Yeah, and just think, when this came out, he wasn't even what he is.
No, he
wasn't even Bullet
He was
Club.
just like this awesome guy who had endless potential. And you're like, oh, cool, I'll pick this up. This guy's pretty good. And now look, this was setting the stage for what he was going to be. They put him in this game because they knew.
Now, the crazy thing is, all of this is still available for purchase.
Yeah.
Whether it's the PlayStation Store or Steam, you could still get all of this, including the DLC.
Well, because this is the most current release for Fire Pro Wrestling, because they don't do yearly releases.
Right, and it's still pretty old. Now, we've been seeing stuff going back and forth, on Reddit, are we ready for a new Fire Pro? One like this doesn't really run its course. You could still keep playing it and keep upgrading it yourself. My favorite part is that creation suite where you could edit the wrestlers or the arenas, the movesets, the logos, all of that. You could upload it straight to an internet database, and it goes right onto your PlayStation or your Steam. I made a GameCube-looking arena. I made UFC Octagon with logos all over it. I made Create a Pro, a Game Marks podcast one, Clash at the Feast. I think I made Major Pod.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
But
the list goes on.
There's a arena and a creative suite for whatever you're into making. If you want to just make wrestlers, you got it. If you want to make just arenas, you got it. If you really want to go crazy and you want to make custom moves, guess what? Fire Pro's got you. You can get that. You don't have to go back to, what was that? Smackdown 2 that has the move maker? Or Smackdown Shut Your Mouth has the move maker?
Maybe even later.
No, I think it's in between.
It's one of
It's either
those.
Just Bring It or
Might be a SmackDown vs. Raw definitely has it because I used to do that.
yeah.
didn't
I think the first one is Just Bring It. I'm probably wrong. We've played so many of them that it all blends together. It's all SmackDown and Raw games now. But listen, let's talk about some of these big names here.
Wait, you can't forget, George. There's also DLC where you could play as the World Wonder Ring Stardom women's wrestlers.
Oh yeah! Oh my God!
Also a DLC, and it all came out kind of in August of 2019. Like it all came out around the same time, which is cool.
And I mean, if you understand the history of Fire Pro Wrestling, you know that there are complete versions of this game that are solely based around women's wrestling.
Right.
Fire Pro Wrestling Queen Special. We haven't played it yet, but I'm aware that it exists, and it is a full women's wrestling Fire Pro Wrestling game. It's awesome. Can't wait to get to it. But here's the modern version of it where there's a huge DLC pack. But let's talk about some of these names here. We mentioned Jay White. Clash brought up before. You get Jushin Thunder Liger. You have Okada, Kenny Omega, Naito. You have Hiroshi Tanahashi, Minoru Suzuki. I mean,
Zack Sabre
Jr., Will Ospreay,
Taka
Michinoku.
Honestly, you have all of the Will Ospreay. I think you said that already. Rocky
Trent.
Romero, Beretta. Yeah. Everyone you had in a Fire Pro Returns plus a new roster are here, but they're actually here.
Yeah, it's actually them. It's not, there's not a Jabrowski Okuda or something like that. It's actually...
Well, there is still the SWA
Well, yeah,
roster.
there is the SWA roster, and obviously you still have a full creative suite. Go watch the YouTube video. We did a battle royal, and it's mostly Creative Pro people in there, or like indie wrestlers. But it's got Fire Pro Wrestling for me has always been the game that has something for everybody. You may not like everything about it, but there's something in it that you're going to like. If you've always wanted to have a game where you wanted to have the exploding barbed wire death matches, great. Well, that's in here. You don't have to like any other aspect of the game, but you could appreciate that that's in there and think that's pretty cool. Because, I mean, we're really not getting... I mean, it seems like we're going to get this in the AEW game, but I can't think of any North American releases that have barbed wire death matches or even barbed wire ropes that didn't require some kind of game shot code or anything.
ECW Hardcore Revolution, come on.
But is it
barbed wire rope
Is it
match.
barbed wire ropes
there.
or is it just in...
No, it's barbed wire ropes because you run into them and you hit them.
Oh, yeah, and then you're just stuck.
Your back bleeds. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
But that's
And I'm not- and I'm-
I mean, the ECW games were kind of crazy.
And I'm not counting like backyard wrestling because those didn't even really take place in wrestling rings. They just like had like there's like a barbed wire fence that you would get. But that's a good correction. I appreciate you correcting me on that. The ECW game does count, so you get one.
I get one. But okay, let's look at the WWE roster at this time. It is like peak beginning of the ruthless.
I mean, you got
aggression.
A-Train.
You got A-Train. You got Batista's only rated a 72 in this game, so that's where you could see how far
John Cena's
back this game is.
75.
John Cena's 75 when you get 2 games later in 2 years, he's on the cover with Batista. So, right? It's Batista in 2006? Not important, but yeah, it's Cena and Batista. So you get Kevin Nash. You get literally whoever you think. Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Thug Life, whatever, Word Life, John Cena. I think that's super cool. Now, I got to say, this might be the weakest Legends roster of any.
That, I think, is the only strike that I can think of right off the bat.
Oof. Animal and Hawk, obviously great. But then you have George
Great.
Animal
Love
Steel, Hillbilly Jim. You said great, love it, but George Animal Steel is still not someone people really are dying to play.
Yeah, but I got to support the Georges.
Yeah.
Sure. We're few and far between.
Iron Sheik, which is cool because you're not getting him in many anymore. Jimmy Snuka, we won't touch on that one. Nikolai Volkov, who I've actually wrestled. Roddy Piper, Sergeant Slaughter, Ted DiBiase, and Old School Undertaker. So not that many. I mean, I guess it's good when your roster can carry a game like this. Like we saw 2K20 was loaded with legends. Even now, it's loaded with legends, but it's like it needs it.
Yeah, and the process and the amount currently that you can get legends is kind of
Yeah. Now we're also in the era where DLC is not a thing. You're not even playing online yet.
Or
it's not until the next one.
I was just saying, because I knew that you needed that the modem to plug into the back of the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, I had the Slim, so I was included.
No, I had that big.
I think
it was like a freaking cassette tape. You had to plug it to the back.
I had the one for the Xbox. It wasn't fun. Now, let's go to the story modes here, because Fire Pro Wrestling Worlds, I've played through the Super Junior, whatever one it's called, Junior Heavyweight, and you pretty much start at the bottom. You learn how to play. You're in the dojo. You work your way up. It's very similar, if you're not familiar, to Retromania, how it's text, and there are some voice lines.
Yeah.
The main one in there has voice lines, but I don't think the DLC are fully voiced over. Which
no,
makes
Fighting
sense.
Road has. The most predominant voice that you hear is Yuji Nagata, but you're getting jumps in every now and then from Tanahashi. There's huge names that come in there, pop in, give you some voice lines and stuff like that. But it's a rewarding storyline.
The other end, George, I think Smackdown Here Comes the Pain might be one of the greatest season modes you will find in any wrestling game. Come on, you got Tori Wilson, and I'm not going to go further.
I have vivid memories of walking through the backstage as Brock Lesnar. Like, Brock was the guy that I picked, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
Right, and it's 1 year long, but you could keep going still. You could keep going. You make rivalries. You get the titles. It's full on actual storylines, contract signings, like you see on the back of the box. Contract signings, and it's just so immersive. You really get in there, and I don't know. I love it when I think of like a good story. First of all, I'm going to say No Mercy, but even though we played them recently, the text doesn't really make sense. But as a 12-year-old, it was awesome. I didn't know where commas went fully. Maybe not even until like last year.
I will say this. An important part of the Fire Pro Wrestling Fighting Road story is it starts you off with the tutorial. So even if you've never played the game, the first thing you're doing in the story mode is the tutorial.
I actually learned a lot from there, like corner grapples and such. It definitely, if you're unfamiliar, that's one of the things you could do to get familiar. Now, I'm looking here at the screenshots I have posted, and I love the fact that there's just different stuff you could do in Fire Pro. You could do an MMA fight. You could do, like you said before, the steel cage, the death match, the barbed wire. But having that octagon or whatever it is here, it looks like it's like
they just call it SWA.
Or
is it
SWA rules matches.
It was Gruesome Fights. What it is? Yeah, SWA is the score-based, point-based games.
Right. I just think that's such a cool dynamic, and it caters to more fans than wrestling. And I think more people should know about it.
I agree. And
it's actually character-based, where if you pick a MMA fighter, you're at way more of an advantage than a
you
wrestler.
didn't even touch on the fact that you made you started making MMA fighters in your Fire Pro Wrestling World. Didn't you make Conor McGregor?
I did make Conor. It was that long ago. He was still relevant. He didn't get his leg snapped by Dustin Poirier yet. But I would like to continue that. I would like maybe I'll make Dustin next. Maybe, generic guy number 3.
Oh man, what if we made like a little thing for a YouTube channel? It was like a gruesome fight tournament. Like we did like a couple week tournament just like on the YouTube series.
Game Marks Podcast Underground.
GMP Underground. I love it.
Let's
do it.
Not a bad idea. So let's talk about the ratings that each of these got. I'll take SmackDown. You'll take
Sounds good.
So IGN called Here Comes the Pain one of the best wrestling games we've ever played, with its ultra-improved gameplay mechanics, enhanced visual engine, smarter career mode, and established create a wrestler feature. Ukes and THQ are definitely the track to success. Oh, what a statement, as both of these companies are now making a game again in
It
2022.
gets me
Who would've
hyped.
thought? But also, is it that much of an improvement from Shut Your Mouth? I guess it is, gameplay wise. It's just added, but I think Shut Your Mouth was also just as good.
It's what we talked about with the difference, how we were comparing last week from the jump from World Tour to Revenge is a much larger jump than the jump from Revenge to WrestleMania 2000. And then an even smaller jump from WrestleMania 2000 to No Mercy. They found that those mechanics that work, and they went, okay, this is great. We've got a good basis. How do we just build up on it? So
yeah, and I think Shut Your Mouth was like a weird roster too, a weird spot.
So they just took that and went, all right, this is good. We got a good reception from the gameplay. How do we make this better? All right, we'll fix the roster. We'll tighten up the graphics a little bit, and we'll add a couple of new features.
Yeah. So GameSpot said, what the game lacks in innovation, however, is more than made up for in sheer playability. So, I don't know, they're such pricks sometimes. Eurogamer called it a superb blend of traditional and wrestling-specific fight mechanics, and there's so much variety here that it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say you could play this one from now until the next Smackdown without getting bored or running out of things to do. Also,
I agree
people
with
are
that,
still playing it. GMR said submission moves finally make sense thanks to the logical location-based damage system, and wrestlers' weights are accurately presented. Official U.S. PlayStation Magazine called it the first game in the series that tries to accommodate both sides by combining quick action with the technical elements of wrestling, and it works. Almost. Also a weird statement. I think that's something that got a little lost later, once you get later in the Smackdowns or even the 2K series, where it just gets fully technical and it's no longer quick action. I think we saw that a little bit more this year, which I liked. Now, this also won Best Fighting Game at the 2003 Spike Video Game Awards.
All right, well, moving on over to Fire Pro Wrestling World, Gaming Nexus scored it a 90 and says that Fire Pro Wrestling World brings back everything that was great about Fire Pro Wrestling Returns and expands upon it to give the fans a definitive Fire Pro experience. Don't let the graphics scare you away. This is one of the most fun and in-depth professional wrestling games around today that any fans of professional wrestling, no matter what promotion you enjoy, can enjoy. And really, if you think about the comparison that we made, I'm going back to it again, the comparison that we made last week of the World Tour succession, really that's what Fire Pro has done for the entire lifespan of it. They took a concept, they built upon that concept, they got it to a point where everyone was just like, hey, the controls are great, the roster is expansive, there's all these great creative tools, now we're just going to add more to it. And they added, the barbed wire death match and the gruesome matches and the SWA, and they added more creative options where it just wasn't about the wrestlers, and now you have titles and arenas and all these other things. And I don't think that I disagree with anything that Gaming Nexus said. It pulls upon the existing success of Fire Pro Wrestling Returns and just, fixed it up a little bit, tightened everything up so that it was a better experience. Now, Sam Brook of Push Square calls the game a fun return to form for the series, but criticized it for not being accessible to all gamers. And I gotta agree with that.
That's because it came out first for the PC and then only the PlayStation.
If you're gonna criticize one major aspect of Fire Pro Wrestling World, it is that. It is more or less a console exclusive, which is weird. Because if you think about it this way, so it releases for the PC. Now, very common practice is that a game comes out for the PC and then also releases for the Xbox.
George, what was the last Xbox Fire Pro game?
Was it the live arcade?
Yeah, I think ties were severed after
that.
Think about it, though. Fire Pro Returns only came out on PlayStation 2,
Yeah, I guess for
Not on
a
Xbox.
large portion of it. Yeah, I guess it really has been predominantly a Sony disc-based cartridge or disc-based system, and then before that, it was cartridges that were across mainly on the Super Famicom and the Nintendo systems. Yeah, I guess I never made that connection, but now that I'm thinking back, and we're always just like, all right, we're playing this, for the Super Famicom or the Commodore or regular Nintendo. I'm just like, we're never like, hey, we're playing Fire Pro Wrestling. Oh well, that's Iron Slam is not Fire Pro Wrestling. That's Shin Nippon. It's New Japan, or it's All Japan, right?
Right.
And then finally, EGM says,
Finally.
in an era where so many other wrestling games continue to focus on style over substance, a legendary Japanese franchise returns to remind its rivals of how things should be done. And I think this is really the mindset of what professional wrestling video game fans have. You're either a Fire Pro player or you're, for lack of a better comparison, a WWE gamer. And, John, that was your views for a little bit too.
Absolutely. And that's why this competition is happening. So, yeah. Let's see. But, George, now, it is time for everyone
Come aboard
to rate the game.
The game!
All right, so everybody, I got it. Everybody head on over to Twitter at twitter.com/GameMarksPod and cast your vote in the pinned tweet. Now, it's only going to be up here until Tuesday night because we have to record a little early next week, so make sure you get those votes in. There will be a full 5 days to vote, so I think that's going to be perfect. It's going to actually be longer than the first one, so let's get them in, guys.
All right, but you're kicking us off here. Johnny Clash. Game Wars Round 1, Match 2. Here Comes the Pain versus Fire Pro Wrestling World. What are you going with?
So, to go and play one now, I'm going to play World because it's not an emulator. A PS2 is not hooked up. I'm just going to pop on the PlayStation and I'm going to play Fire Pro Wrestling World. It's at my fingertips.
But we're not rating convenience.
I know. So playing both of them just before in our playthrough, which we highly suggest you watch, I was having so much fun playing Fire Pro Wrestling World. And then we got to Here Comes the Pain and I was like, I think Fire Pro was more fun than this. Until we started having fun with like the Hell in a Cells, until the controllers started feeling familiar again, and you're like, this is why I loved this game so much. If I'm going to go play a story mode, I'm not going to play Fighting Road. I'm going to go play the Smackdown one. I think I'm giving the slight edge to Smackdown.
Okay.
Here Comes the Pain here. And what say you?
I think I'm the opposite. I think I am the slight advantage to Fire Pro Wrestling World.
I'm casting my vote right now for Here Comes
I'm going to go do the same. See, I am slightly on the other side here, thinking that Fire Pro Wrestling World is the superior game, but only because it has a more robust creative suite, and if you wanted to have any kind of experience, you could make that in Fire Pro Wrestling World. Man, it's tough. It really is tough. They're both staples in my wrestling library for different reasons. I think Fire Pro Wrestling World may be the best. I know Returns is really good. I was going to say that I think Fire Pro Wrestling World may be the best Fire Pro Wrestling game, but I think Returns may still be the best one. I don't know. It's a toss-up. I got to go back and play Returns, see how it holds up. But I think I'm Fire Pro Wrestling World by literally a hair.
Okay. Now,
I'm going to do it right
vote.
now.
We'll find out next week. We'll find out next week who the winner is, but that's it for battle number 2. We pled our case, and now the fate is in your hands to see who's going to go to round 2 with WCW NWO Revenge. But right now, it is time to enter the soft lock.
All right, Soft Lock is a weekly segment where one of our mega marks on Patreon gives us a topic or a question to debate. And John and I go back and forth. We discuss, debate, argue about that topic. And this week, the question comes from Jamie Patterson. What's going on, Soups? And Jamie's question is, what wrestlers do you think would be the best characters to play in Super Smash Brothers? So I was thinking we each give 3. Unless you...
I mean, we're going to go with the typicals: John Cena, Roman Reigns, Hulk Hogan.
Brock.
I think
okay,
we
you
want to
say...
here. I'm saying
Undertaker. That's not out of the box. I say Undertaker is great. I think the Fiend would be great.
Really, we could just go look at Brawlhalla and see.
I mean, well, because those aren't full characters. Those are just skins for existing characters.
You know what I want to see? Every single person from WrestleMania the arcade game and In Your House in Super Smash Brothers with their abilities from
Doink
their game. So I want Doink with the big hammer. I want Razor with the giant sword. Sean with that bat that extends half the size of the map.
Bam Bam just catches on fire.
Yeah, perfect. Him versus Kirby.
No, it's Fire Bam Bam versus Ice Climbers.
Okay, yeah, I like it. I'm not a big Super Smash guy.
Just text Price.
I played my share of Brawl. Yeah, actually, I will.
What?
Let's see. If
you text Bryce, I'll come up with some stuff. So obviously there's the big names, but like, I think Rey Mysterio would be great in a Smash Brothers style game.
Oh, he's booked right now. I'm not going to bother.
Let's say the Fiend. My 3 are going to be the Fiend, Rey, and
Rey's a good one.
Fiend, Rey, and Warrior.
Warrior would be cool. Full on In Your House Warrior. With Paul Levesque next to him. All right. Now we ask you guys, listen, just hit us up on Twitter or wherever and let us know who you would want to see in a Super Smash Bros. Game. It's honestly endless.
Oh, Darby
Allin. That would be
Sting?
cool. Nice little coffin drop off the edge. Yeah.
What about the whole House of Black?
Ooh, they all do the flip onto the screen, one from the middle,
like
both from the sides.
One of their moves is that the lights go off and they're just like they teleport to another random spot on the map.
They're on a different pose. But the lights are on conveniently long enough for them to get there. Oh, perfect. But all right. What do you say we head on over now to some gaming
Let's talk
news?
about everything.
All right, gaming news sponsored by WrestleChamps New for the iOS and Android. Download now. Get your special move pack by using code GameMarks. Listen, we already said we're going to cover AEW in its entirety next week. We will. It already happened at this point. We're going to be live tweeting and carrying along as it happens. WWE 2K23 is officially in the works after the success of 22. It got a pretty damn good rating increase. It went from like a 40 out of 100 to a 70 out of 100 from 20 to 22. I think that's honestly a huge jump. Iron Man and Black Panther games are rumored to be in the works from EA. God of War Ragnarok is reportedly such a titan of a game, so successful when it comes out, that other studios are moving out of the way and delaying their titles.
Have you
away
played
from its release
the last God of War?
I've never played any, but I did download the free one on PlayStation, so I will be
watch
playing it too.
like the gameplay cinematic movie that they make of the first couple of games, so you understand what's going on, and then play the last one, and then get ready for Ragnarok, because it's a phenomenal.
They look
series.
incredible. So, yeah. Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. It's no longer exclusively on the PlayStation. It is now also on the PC. As me and George actually said when we signed on today, we got the alert on Steam that it's the last day to pre-order. But Insomniac Games has also ensured that it will be playable on the Steam Deck, which means it's portable. Now, this one's cool. Sony says it will no longer be counting any additional sales of the PS4 moving forward, which means it has now reached its lifetime sales total. Now, I got the chart here. It came out swinging with a 4.5 million in October of 2013, but the year it only hit just below 8. Its biggest year, selling-wise, was a 2016. It sold 20 million units. So after 4 years of being out, it finally hit its stride, which I could actually see now, given how hard the PS5 is to actually find.
I think the number that strikes me the most is how long it stayed in double digits.
Yeah, so 2019 was only just above 2014 with almost 14 million units sold. But there was a big drop-off in 2020. Obviously, it hit about 6 million, and then 2021, which is now, it went to 1 million.
That's because there's, I think is that more available now? I didn't think so.
No, it's not. It will be, I'm sure, soon enough. Probably around Christmas time, but we said that last Christmas. But all right, games releasing this week: Backpack Hero, Blossom Tale 2, The Minotaur Prince, Rollerdrome, Tribes of Midgard, Way of the Hunter, Catizens, sure, maybe that's like citizens but cats, The Ascent, Cyber Heist DLC, Cursed, The Golf, RPG Time, The Legend of the Right, and Madden 23. We should play Stray. We should not. I would rather watch Paint Dry, which I kind of do because I play...
Got it. Power Wash Simulator,
Power Wash
okay.
Simulator.
Stray not.
Yeah, no, I don't need to be a cat.
Oh, God. All right, well, youtube.com/GameMarksPodcast for our weekly playthrough videos, exclusive content, and more, including this week and every week's game. Now, last week, we dropped some big news. John, what's going on with the Patreon?
All right, the Patreon is changing September 1st. We added a new early and ad-free tier, and then on top of our normal stuff, we're check out our social media to see the posts and what you can get if you join our Patreon. I think we posted a nice clip this week of Game Over, which is our weekly show of WWF No Mercy, and you'll see what you're missing. It's pretty good stuff. But this week, you're getting the show early and ad-free. You're getting the show notes as well. Tuesday, you're getting Game Over on Patreon. We're running through the World Heavyweight Championship in No Mercy. Wednesday, on Future Endeavored, George is going to be playing WWF WrestleMania Challenge. I played WCW Nitro last week. Wild's World, it's coming out whenever he has a minute, I guess. And... date still pending. GMP64 presents Warzone live on Twitch sometime in December.
All right, guys, we did our August pay-per-view. We'll see you in December.
See you in December. You'll definitely remember what was going on.
John, next week, the next round.
This is a big one.
Of Game Wars. WWF No Mercy versus WWE Smackdown versus Raw 2006. So this is arguably everyone's favorite N64 title versus everyone's favorite SmackDown versus Raw title. Easily regarded as one of the best one in the SmackDown vs. Raw series. I've seen a lot of people say 6. I've seen a lot of people say 8. We decided to go with 6 for this one just because the roster may not be as strong, but the gameplay is above and beyond.
Yep, and yeah, this is going to be... I know.
Listen, I was very surprised that VPW lost. and by such a large margin. There was an expectation that it wasn't going to do as well, but not to such a large deficit as it actually lost. But we'll see what happens, and I'm very curious to see what happens this week. But that is going to do it for this episode. Make sure to go to GameMarksPod.com/shop for all of our exclusive merchandise. ProWrestlingTees.com/GameMarksPod for all of our new shirt designs. We're trying to get new shirts up there every week. I think we just had 3 go up in the last 2 weeks, so make sure to go and check those out. Patreon.com/GameMarksPod for all of our exclusive wrestling content that you just heard John mention. At GameMarksPod on all forms of social media. And please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and leave us a 5-star review on both Apple Podcast and Spotify. And if you have a product or service that you would like to advertise on this podcast, please reach out to us at GameMarksPod@gmail.com. I love that bell so much. I thought I was going to hate it, but I actually really enjoy it. John, it's time for you to do that thing that you do. Game over, Marks.
Game Marks Podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks Podcast every single Monday.